Ladies and gentlemen, prepare yourselves. Today's story is one you won't soon forget. When Hollywood's bright smile, Mark Consuelos, was brought to his knees in tears, the reason behind his breakdown was more than anyone expected. What followed next shook not just his world, but our hearts too. Kelly&Ripa, beloved by millions, has now been thrust into a battle that no family ever wants to fight, a devastating cancer diagnosis. The shock, the pain, the uncertainty, and yet within this darkness, a glimmer of hope. In this video, I'll take you through every heartbreaking moment, every tear, and every surprising turn that shows us how love, resilience, and courage can shine through. Stay with me, because what happens next will catch you off guard. And later, you'll see why this story is a powerful lesson for all of us, especially those of us in the golden years. Let's begin. From the moment the news broke, the world was stunned. Kelly&Ripa, radiant, energetic, ever smiling, had gone in for what she thought might be a routine check. But the diagnosis came back more severe than anyone dared to hope. The news, internal sources say, struck her like a bolt from the blue. Mark Consuelos, her husband of many years, was the first to receive the news. Friends close to the couple describe a scene of utter devastation. The room fell silent, tears welled up, and the weight of uncertainty pressed heavily upon them. Mark, always so strong in the public eye, was suddenly human, vulnerable, shattered, uncertain. The press would later capture that moment, Mark's face streaked with tears, his voice breaking. The footage went viral. People asked, how could this happen to someone so healthy, so full of life? In that instant, the strong facade cracked, reminding us that even icons are not immune to life's cruel surprises. Behind closed doors, the Ripa Consuelos household changed overnight. Kelly retreated to silence. Glossy talk shows gave way to quiet hospital hallways and whispered consultations. Mark, who once joked effortlessly on camera, became a pillar of strength in dim corridors and waiting rooms. In the early days, Kelly fought to keep up appearances. A forced smile, a quiet, "I'm okay." But behind that mask, she was grappling with fear, pain, and uncertainty. Mark took on the burden of protectorship, coordinating doctors, reading medical charts, fielding questions from loved ones, all while wrestling with his own anguish. Insiders recount nights when he'd sit alone in their living room, staring at old photos, replaying memories, tears spilling in the dark. And Kelly? She would sometimes wake in the middle of the night and find him by her bedside, silently holding her hand, trying to reassure her that they would get through it, yet unsure whether he truly believed it himself. How does one keep hope when every test result brings a new question? That question loomed, hanging in the air, and what they did next surprised nearly everyone. As the diagnosis settled, the fight began, but this would not be a straight path. Kelly's doctors proposed a bold, non-conventional treatment, one still in trial phases with uncertain outcomes. It was a gamble, a dangerous hope. Mark, ever devoted, backed it, even though colleagues warned him of the risks. Kelly, weary but determined, agreed. They entered a regimen of intensive therapy, grueling hours, side effects, and setbacks. She'd lose energy, appetite, sometimes the very will to speak. Mark would sit by her side, reading letters of encouragement from fans, holding her hand through tears, begging her to fight. There were moments when Kelly deteriorated unexpectedly, fever spiking, blood counts dropping. Every scare felt like the brink of tragedy. The public remained largely unaware. Their team remained tight-lipped. Yet behind the scenes, a war unfolded day by day. And as they pressed onward, a surprise emerged, a tiny glimmer of progress. But would it last? Or would it slip away? Once the tears and hospital photos reached the public eye, social media exploded. Fans flooded Kelly and Mark with messages, prayers, worship words, memories of how Kelly Ripa had brightened their mornings on TV. Hashtags trended, news outlets scrambled. Every rumor, every partial fact became a story. Some reports were helpful. Coverage of her treatment, updates, heartfelt support. But others crossed lines, wild speculation, invasive paparazzi following ambulances, unverified claims about prognosis. Mark, always protective, lashed out, demanding privacy, threatening legal action against intrusive outlets. Yet even that added pressure. Kelly, already fragile, had to contend not just with disease, but with the glare of public scrutiny. How could she heal with cameras lingering at the hospital doors? Amid the noise, one moment stood out. Mark, in tears, publicly declaring, "You don't fight this alone." That phrase went viral. It resonated deeply, especially with older Americans who faced illness in their own families. But what happened after that emotional declaration? The answer would surprise us all. When the storm raged, Kelly and Mark leaned heavily on a network of love. Their children, grown now, each took shifts at her bedside. Friends from Hollywood and beyond sent messages, visited quietly, brought meals, whispered prayers. Religious leaders, spiritual guides, whispered psalms in their ears. One friend, a well-known actor, flew in without announcement and sat quietly in the waiting room for days. Another, a talk show host, set up a fundraising chain, but Kelly insisted no public campaign. She wanted healing, not pity. Through that web of support, Kelly and Mark found small strengths: a message, a prayer, a meal, a hand to hold. A pastor once told Mark, "Sometimes the bravest thing is to admit you can't do it alone." He cried when he heard that, because he'd been trying so hard to be everything: husband, protector, caregiver. And yet, even with love all around them, the fight was far from over. What lay ahead would push them further than they ever imagined. Just when the world believed Kelly was turning a corner, they were struck by a cruel setback. A new scan revealed metastasis, the cancer spreading beyond the original site. It was the kind of news that steals breath, that forces tears to come unbidden. The optimism that had been creeping back was dashed. Mark, already exhausted, broke down again, in private, in public, in anything between. Kelly sat in shock, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Why now?" she asked, staring at the ceiling. Medical teams scrambled to adjust protocols. The non-conventional therapy had to be paused. The side effects had grown too severe. She would enter a round of salvage treatments, more aggressive, more dangerous. But with them came greater risk of damage, pain, and even worse outcomes. The family gathered in a quiet circle in their living room, where the walls have held decades of laughter and love. They asked, "Do we continue? At what cost?" The decision would define the next chapter, but which path would they choose? They had to decide, and when they did, it shocked even the doctors. Against every probability, Kelly began showing signs of response. A blood marker declined, a tumor shrank. She regained some energy. Her laughter, once distant, flickered again. The house, once haunted by fear, caught glimmers of normalcy. A meal cooked, a joke shared, a television laugh. Mark watched, tears in his eyes, the way someone watches sunlight after a storm. Doctors called it a partial remission. It wasn't a cure, not yet, but it was something rare, a turnaround when so many had counted it out. The recovery came in fits and starts. Some days were good, some agonizing. But every small win became a beacon. Mark, ever the protector, paused in disbelief. Could this really be happening? Was the worst behind them? He cleaned out hospital paraphernalia, restored their home,
began planning small, hopeful outings. Kelly asked, "Could I make it to my granddaughter's birthday?" He nodded, voice shaking. But life doesn't reward hope without testing it again. Because just as optimism began strengthening, a new twist was waiting. Just when the family allowed themselves to breathe a bit, medical tests revealed a complication, an unexpected infection, or maybe a side effect, something that threatened the fragile recovery. Doctors warned that the next round of treatment might not be tolerated. Every dose carried risk. Every day, Kelly had to fight not only the cancer, but also the collateral damage to her body. Mark was terrified. The public began whispering again. Is this another relapse? A sign the remission was a fluke? But Mark stood